At the beginning of the film, a high school girl named Chae-young walks down the hallway as students cheer her on and throw papers at her. It is learned that recently, Chae-young has beaten up several bullies, and now she is expelled for being involved in many fights. People stopped her outside the school but were too scared to anger her. They only asked Chae-young to keep her promise, which was to never return to school. Meanwhile, Chae-young's father, Brak, was a karate black belt who owned a judo training institute. Due to his influence, Chae-young has been trained in several forms of martial arts from a young age. This was also the reason why she never lost when fighting with bullies. One day, Chae-young and her father went to a new school to enroll her. The principal accepted her as his new student, but he warned her not to fight or cause trouble here. Because just last week, a bully was suspended for violent behavior. Her father then explains that Chae-young is not a bully, but instead, she likes to fight bullies because they abuse weaker people. After the meeting, Chae-young was upset at her father for telling her past to the teacher. Brak explains that there will definitely be bullies in the new school, therefore, Chae-young should learn to be more patient and control herself. Outside the school premises, a group of students were seen beating up a man named Jung-gu because he refused to let them cheat on his paper during an exam. Furious about it, Chae-young immediately shot a video of the commotion, but was unfortunately caught by one of them. She initially wanted to give the bullying video to the principal and settle it the right way. However, when the girls threatened to beat her up, Chae-young is forced to resort to her old ways of violence. Skillfully, she dodges their attacks efficiently and fights them off with little to no effort. Meanwhile, Jung-gu is just stunned to see someone so brave and strong, fighting off the bullies that are so feared in his school. The next day, when Chae-young first enters the new school, she finds herself in the same class as Jung-gu and his bullies.
채영아, 저기 빈자리 있지? 저기 가서 앉으면 되겠다.
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 양채영이고 앞으로 잘 부탁드립니다.
과학이요. 그래, 알았어.
After school, Jung-gu goes to see Chae-young to thank her for her help the day before. However, with a cold expression on her face, Chae-young asks Jung-gu to stay away from her, even pretending not to know each other. The scene then switches and shows the chaotic atmosphere at a restaurant when some thugs are reluctant to pay for their food. Jung-gu then tries to warn the thugs to pay, but he is intimidated instead. The restaurant owner, who turns out to be Jung-gu's mother, then asks the thugs to get out of there. The next day, Chae-young is visited by a girl named Sae-na, who is her senior. Sae-na wants to make a judgment on Chae-young for beating up her men. Sae-na, who had intended to bully Chae-young, was humiliated in front of everyone. Jung-gu, who again witnessed Chae-young's courage to face the bullied students, then approached her again and asked her to teach him martial arts. To be honest, Chae-young refuses Jung-gu's request because she doesn't want to get involved with him or anyone else. However, Chae-young finally relents when Jung-gu says he wants to learn martial arts to defend his mother, who is often bullied by thugs who mess up at his mother's restaurant. Chae-young then takes Jung-gu to his father's karate dojo because his father is a karate martial arts trainer. Mr. Brak is very happy with Jung-gu's arrival, who wants to practice karate because it means that his karate dojo finally has another student besides Chae-young after a long time. The scene then switches to Sae-na complaining about Chae-young's presumptuous behavior to student council member Hae-sung. According to Sae-na, Chae-young should be severely punished for humiliating herself and trampling on the dignity of the seniors in the school. The next day, Chae-young is called to the student council room to meet Jin Hyuk, the student council president. Jin Hyuk then asked Chae-young about the fight that happened. However, Chae-young said that she only defended Jang-gu, who was being bullied by Sae-na's men. Hearing this, Hae-sung, who was also in the student council room with Sae-na, then told Chae-young to leave because he thought Sae-na's men were the ones who started the commotion.
가봐.
Back to Jang-gu, who focuses on basic karate training with Chae-young. Despite feeling pain all over his body due to heavy physical training, Chae-young continues to encourage him, and over time, they become closer. One night, all the administrators and student council members are seen partying to welcome the return of a young man named Kang-sik. But Hae-sung doesn't seem excited and chooses to date Jin Hyuk instead. Soon after, they have a fight because Jin Hyuk decides to join the gangsters and Hae-sung doesn't like his decision. The next day, while at school, Jin Hyuk is approached by a gangster leader named Sang-jin. They have a meeting in the student council room and discuss everything about the things Jin Hyuk will do after officially becoming a gangster. Sang-jin also meets Hae-sung and invites him to join him. But Hae-sung rejects the invitation because he doesn't want to be a bad boy. On the other hand, Jang-gu is again bullied by his friends. But this time, he managed to fight off the bullies, which turned out to be his imagination. Unable to fight them, Jang-gu then becomes the target. But then came Hae-sung, who tried to help Jang-gu. At first, Hae-sung was able to defeat Jang-gu's bullies. However, Kang-sik, who is famous for being fierce and good at martial arts, suddenly appears and defeats Hae-sung.
내가 누군지 까먹었지. 까먹었다 병신아.
Chae-young sees Jang-gu being bullied again, then helps him, and it turns out he can beat Kang-sik quite easily.
분명 데려가라고 했다.
니 맞지 양채영이?
Hae-sung, who was surprised to see Chae-young, who could subdue Kang-sik easily, then decided to practice karate at Chae-young's father's dojo. Unlike Jang-gu, who wants to master martial arts to defend his mother, Hae-sung is willing to spend money on martial arts courses just to get close to Chae-young. However, Chae-young is cold towards Hae-sung because he was once part of a bully group at school. Ever since Jin Hyuk joined Sang-jin's group, the gangsters started taking over the school and harassing the students. With Kang-sik acting as the leader of the delinquent students, they start forcing the other students to deposit money to the student council as tribute. Only Chae-young's class is not required to deposit tribute because Kang-sik doesn't want to fight with her anymore. One day, Jang-gu, who has a high spirit of justice, could not tolerate the actions of a bad student who bullied a geeky student. Although Jang-gu has not mastered martial arts like Chae-young, he is still determined to defend his students even if he has to be beaten.
왜 자꾸 가만히 있는 애들 괴롭혀?
After school, Jang-gu then begged Mr. Brack to teach karate faster to defend himself and defend the oppressed. Mr. Brack then taught Jang-gu some karate moves and told him to practice harder.
제대로 들어가면 공격력은 배로 증가하지. 주먹보다 부드러운 부분이라 새끼 손가락 쪽에 날로 공격해.
On the other hand, Hae-sung is also increasingly diligent in practicing karate, although he first came to the dojo only to get close to Chae-young. Seeing Hae-sung's seriousness in practicing karate at his father's dojo, Chae-young's attitude softens towards him, and they become close friends. One day, Hae-sung took Chae-young and Jang-gu for a walk. The three of them then wander around the city while enjoying the scenery. Jang-gu invites his friends to stop by his mother's restaurant and introduces them to his mother on the way home. Jang-gu's mom is happy that her son is now more confident and has close friends. The next day, Hae-sung and Jin-hyuk fight because Hae-sung is fed up with Jin-hyuk deliberately letting the Sangjin gangsters bully the students at school. On the other hand, Jin-hyuk is also angry at Hae-sung, who he thinks has changed a lot and acted saintly, even though they used to bully students at school.
안 갈 거지? 어떻게 되나?
Jin-hyuk, who can't accept defeat after Hae-sung defeats him, then asks SAE not to hurt Chae-young because he thinks Chae-young is the one who made Hae-sung change drastically. Not only that, Chae-young's presence also threatens his influence at school, so he's determined to get rid of the girl. SAE na, who secretly likes Hae-sung, agrees to Jin-hyuk's plan to poison Chae-young. The next day, SAE na invites Chae-young to the student council room. She says she wants to apologize to her and offers her a cup of poisoned tea. SAE na then talks about Hae-sung. However, Chae-young looks indifferent and insists that she has no relationship with Hae-sung, who is only a student at her father's karate dojo. Realizing that Chae-young is actually a good girl, SAE na can't bear to hurt her and slaps her hand when she's about to drink the tea laced with poison. Jin-hyuk enters the room and sees that Chae-young is fine, then slaps SAE na because he thinks she's incompetent to do his bidding. Kan-sik and some of his men then ambush Chae-young and lock her up in the student council room.
빚을 거란데? 에? 진혁 선배가 존나 배로고 있었잖아.
On the other hand, Jang-gu overhears Kan-sik's men's conversation and learns that they're holding Chae-young in the student council room. Jang-gu then looks for Hae-sung and tells him about it. Hae-sung immediately calls Jin-hyuk and he confirms that he's holding Chae-young in the student council room and asks Hae-sung to come there if he wants to save her. Hae-sung and Jang-gu then head to the student council room to rescue Chae-young. But they're intercepted by Kan-sik and his men in the gym. Despite their best efforts against Kan-sik and his men, Hae-sung and Jang-gu manage to defeat them all.
너 못 나간다.
Afterwards, Hae-sung and Jang-gu go to the boardroom and fight Jin-hyuk. Covered in bruises and almost completely drained of energy, Hae-sung and Jang-gu are overwhelmed by Jin-hyuk. Hae-sung even lies down helplessly. Jang-gu, whose martial arts skills are no match for Jin-hyuk's, can only surrender when Jin-hyuk beats him to death. But as it turns out, it was all a ploy to free Chae-young. As Jin-hyuk's attention turns to Jang-gu, Hae-sung frees Chae-young and she immediately gets up to fight Jin-hyuk. It didn't take long for Chae-young to conquer Jin-hyuk.
나 박진혁이야.
After Jin-hyuk succumbs to defeat, the three of them then leave the student council room. The film ends by showing Chae-young's father's karate, which is getting more and more students, so he has enough income to provide for him and Chae-young.